Hey, it's Vicky, and today I am here to do the mid-year book Freakout tag. This is a tag I've been doing for the last few years, and it's just a fun one to do because it's all about kind of the first half of the year, how the reading has been going, the books I've been loving, things I haven't loved so much. It's just kind of a good way to just reflect on the first half of the year and, you know, also kind of look forward to the next 6 months. So I don't remember who created this tag, but I will link it down below. And yeah, there's 13 questions, so let's dive right in. So question 1 is the best book that I've read so far this year. The big question. And I couldn't pick just one. So far this year I have had 8 5-star reads, which isn't a ton, but also I have been known to be a little stingy with my 5-star ratings. But I couldn't pick just one, I picked 2 books for this. The first one is a nonfiction memoir called The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. I read this one back in February, and I absolutely loved it. I listened to the audiobook, it's narrated by Dave Grohl, and it's just about his life in music. And it's kind of told kind of out of order, just little sort of anecdotal stories about his life and his career. And yeah, it was funny, it was inspiring, it really got me on a Nirvana and Foo Fighters kick. I have been listening to them ever since. Like, I've just been on a 90s rock kick thanks to that book. So yeah, it was a great book and one that I definitely recommend for anybody out there. Even if you aren't a huge fan of the Foo Fighters or Nirvana, if you are just a fan of memoirs, it's a good one. And then the other favorite I chose is I Remember You by Yrsa Sigurðardóttir. This is a mystery, kind of horror novel about, there's kind of 2 different stories going on through the book, and you spend a big chunk of it kind of wondering how the 2 are connected. And then when they connect, it was like, pff, I loved it. I loved the setting. It takes place in Iceland. I loved the creepiness, especially the one story deals with 3 people that are renovating this house on this like basically deserted island. And the house is clearly haunted and creepy things are happening. And so I just loved the atmosphere in this book, and it just had a really good story. It was very layered and just entertaining, and I just loved it. Question 2 is the best sequel that I've read this year, and I haven't read a ton of sequels. I have been slacking a little bit in the series game this year, but one that I have read and I really enjoyed was Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the 2nd book in the Nevermore series, and I just think this is such a fun series. I love Morrigan, our main character, because she is so real. You know, she has like these moody moments. She's not like this just like bright and shiny little girl. Like, I just really like her. And I love the setting, the magical land, Nevermore. It just has some really cool, just magical elements. And it's good. It's really fun. It's entertaining. It's one that I definitely want my kids to pick up eventually because I think they would really love it. So yeah, I really like this and I can't wait to read the 3rd one. Question 3 is a new release I haven't read yet from this year but want to. And this is one that I put on my anticipated list for spring that I haven't read, and it's called Take My Hand. I don't have the author handy, but I will put a picture right here. It's a historical fiction, I think, technically, because it takes place in the 70s, and it's about a Black nurse. I think she begins to have these 2 patients, young girls, and there's some like disturbing stuff going on with them in terms of their medical rights and stuff like that. I don't want to say too much more about it, but I put it on my anticipated reads, and it's been out for I think like a month or 2 now, and rave reviews so far from everyone that I have seen who has read it. So yeah, it's definitely one that I need to pick up very soon. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of 2022. And again, I couldn't pick just one, so I have 3. The first one is Upgrade. Upgrade? Yes, Upgrade, not Upgraded, Upgrade by Blake Crouch. And he is an author that, despite not reading a lot of like sci-fi, his books just jive with me. I've read 2 of his books and really love them. They definitely have like a fast-paced thriller sort of aspect to them. And this one is about a guy who has some sort of, I don't know if it's a procedure done, it must be, where all of a sudden he's like, he just finds himself, you know, he has better memory, and has probably like has better like reaction time to things, and just like all this stuff that's kind of weird to him. And then he realizes that whoever did this to him, or how you know, why, there are like sinister reasons behind it. It's part of like some bigger plan. So I know that like his books just tend to just hit the ground running and just take you on a ride. And so I'm really excited for that one. The next one that I'm anticipating is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. And this one is about a cult. And I recently have been getting into like watching documentaries and stuff like that about various cults. I just find them to be very fascinating, yet also disturbing and just scary. And it's just really interesting to me, cults. And this one is about a woman who was part of one when she was pretty young. I want to say like high school age. She somehow gets kind of pulled in by this charismatic man, and then she breaks away from it. And then I want to say years down the line, somebody that was in the cult with her is killed or something, and she's trying to figure out why, and she kind of has to dive back into that world a little bit to figure out what's going on. And so it just sounds really good, and I want to check it out. And then the last one that I want to read is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Not a big surprise here that I want to read Stephen King's newest book, but this one I think is gonna be really cool. I think it's gonna have, I hope it's gonna have some cool Dark Tower connections, because it deals with a teenage kid who basically discovers a parallel world, and I'm assuming travels there and stuff. And so, I mean, it's gotta have Dark Tower elements, right? It has to have some ties. So I think it's gonna be really good. It looks like it's gonna be pretty chunky, like a 600 pager, but I'm ready for it. Question 5 is my most disappointing read so far this year, and that has to be The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. I actually just read this one back in May, and it was just really boring to me. I was not engaged in the story or the characters, and it just really dragged for me. And I was just disappointed by it, because the 2 books that I previously read by Simone St. James were awesome. They were 4-star reads. I loved them. I loved the mystery, I loved the supernatural stuff, and this one just kind of lacked all of it. It was just very meh, and it ended up being a 2-star read. So yeah, I was bummed because I pre-ordered it. I was so excited for it, and yeah, it did not deliver. Question 6 is the biggest surprise of 2022 so far, and that has to be The Swimmers by Juliet Suka. I just read this one also back in May, and it's one of those stories, it's a quick little novella, but it's one of those stories that when you go into it, you're thinking you're getting something, and it ends up being that, but also so much more. It ends up kind of turning into, as the book progresses, something else. And I really loved that and was surprised by that. It was just not something I was expecting out of the story. And it was just very, very gripping, very powerful. I listened to the audiobook, so I highly recommend that if you want to read this one. But I don't want to say too much more, because I think that's part of the sort of magic of this book, is that it catches you by surprise. But it is about a group of people who are, they all swim at this community pool. And it's just a huge part of their routine, a huge part of their lives. And the people there are also kind of just by association a huge part of their lives, though outside of the pool, they don't really interact. And then one day a crack appears at the bottom of the pool, and they start to worry that they're gonna lose their pool. And yeah, it just kind of goes from there. That's all I'm gonna say about it. But yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't. Question 7 is my favorite new to me author. And I have to say that so far this year, it's gonna be Jason Reynolds for me. I've read 2 of his books in the first half of 2022, and they were the first time I've ever read him, and I've been wanting to read him for such a long time. But yeah, I read Ghost, and I read Ain't Burned All the Bright, which is, I believe, his newest release. And Ghost was amazing. It was a 5-star book. I absolutely loved that story so much. And 8 Burned All the Bright was also very, very well done. And yeah, he just has this, I don't know, just this way about just grabbing me with his writing. He writes such interesting characters. The main character in Ghost was just so, I just loved him. Yeah, and so I know he's got a ton of stuff out there, and I can't wait to read it all. Question 8 is favorite like fictional crush, and every year I just kind of skip over this question because I don't really get crushes on fictional characters. I just don't. Yeah, so I just always skip it. Question 9 is my favorite character so far. And the thing is, the one that I really want to say, I can't say because it would be spoilery, I feel. All I will say is there's a character in the book Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir that I absolutely loved so much, but I can't say anything else about it because I think it's spoilery to do so. So if I had to pick someone besides that character, I would say Sancho Panza from Don Quixote. He was kind of there to be, he was obviously Don Quixote's sidekick throughout the story, but he had a really great, I think, just a great sort of ride throughout this story. His progression as a character, who he ends up becoming, the kinds of things he goes through and learns things through. He was funny. He was, I don't know, I just really liked him. I thought he was great. Question 10 is a book that made me cry. And not a lot of books make me cry, but this one I remember when I was listening to the audiobook towards the end, it was getting me. Like I was holding back the tears, and that is Beautiful Country by Chen Julie Wang. This was a memoir about Chen's experience immigrating to the United States from China. She moves to New York City with her parents, and it's just about her adapting to a new country and the struggles that they endured. And her story was so at times sad, and by the end it ends up being this very inspiring thing, and it was just very emotional, and I almost cried for sure. The 11th question is a book that made me happy, and I'm gonna say Ghost by Jason Reynolds because I just loved the hopefulness, the feeling it just sort of gave me by the end, because it's about a kid who joins a track team, and in doing so he just like makes these new friends and learns what it's like to be part of a team. The relationship he has with his coach in the book is just really great, and I just felt so nostalgic while reading it, because I think anybody that has been part of any sort of team or group can relate to those sorts of bonds that you build with those people, bonds that will carry for the rest of your life, and so I just felt very nostalgic for that. And yeah, I loved it, and it made me feel good by the end. It was great. Okay, question 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year, and I absolutely love this cover, so I'm going to share this one. This was a gift from my mother-in-law, so thank you, Tina. And I have read this one. I read it last month, but this is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I don't know if it's gonna focus, but there we go. I loved this book, and I loved the cover. I love the quirky house. I love the font. I love the shadow in the background, the colors, all of it. It's great. I love it. And then the last question is some books that I want to read by the end of 2022. The first one is kind of tied into my goal to read 5 Stephen King books, which I have not been doing so great on the last couple years. And this year so far, I don't think I'm doing so great either. But the next one I want to read by him is Desperation. And I don't know anything about this except that it's about a town called Desperation. But I need to read it because I need to get them 5 Stephen King books read. Yes. And then the other ones I wanted to mention were ones that are on my Kindle because I have this goal to read more Kindle books, and I have been absolutely sucking at that goal. And so I'm like, okay, I need to put my Kindle more in the forefront on my TBRs and stuff. And so the couple that I was kind of going through and seeing the unread books I have on here, one that stuck out was The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. I've only read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, and I absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star read. It was so good, and I've been saying that I want to read more Karen Slaughter ever since, and I haven't. So it's like, I need to get it on the Kindle. Well, I have it on the Kindle. I just need to read it on the Kindle. And then a couple others. There's 2 by Joe Hill, who is one of my favorite authors, that I haven't read yet, and I don't know what I'm doing and why I haven't read them, but they're both like short story collections, or one of them is a short story collection, one of them is a collection of, I think, 4 novellas. So they are Full Throttle and Strange Weather are both on my Kindle. I would love to read at least one of those by the end of the year, because again, I need to read more books on my Kindle, and Joe Hill is great, and I love pretty much everything he writes, so I don't know why I haven't read them yet. All right, that's it, guys. Those are the questions for the mid-year book freakout tag. Please let me know down below how you would answer some of these questions, especially the first one. What's your favorite book you've read so far this year? Because I would love to know what everybody's loving. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.